everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Chelsea and I am here to do a reading tag, specifically a romance reader book tag, which I am so excited. I've been really feeling the romance reading world lately, and I just really wanted to make a whole origin story of me discovering romance and how I got into it. And then I discovered this tag and I was like, perfect. And then I realized it's made by Bree, who is one of my favorite romance readers in the book community as a whole. She doesn't do YouTube anymore, but she's mostly on Instagram and her blog nowadays, and I still just adore her. So the fact that she created this tag, it was meant to be. So this is the Get to Know the Romance Reader tag, and I will leave the original tag linked down below. It's basically a link to Bree's blog, which you should go follow because she's amazing and reads so much and has so many good recommendations. So the first question is, what is your romance origin story? Which is exactly what I wanted to make a video about, so that is perfect. But this is essentially how you got into reading romance. And this is a whole long story that I could get into, but ultimately I feel like I've kind of always been a closet romance reader in that I didn't even realize what I liked in books until I was an adult and really found the romance genre. But I've always read I've been reading my entire life, but all of the books that I was reading in the YA section, the main appeal of them was the romance in the story, the happily ever after, the couples building tension and getting together and kissing for the first time. And then I started to kind of branch into the romance world, basically after I read the ACOTAR series back when that came out, 4 or 5 years ago, and I realized that, sex was in books, and I was just wait a second. I knew it existed, but I never really delved into it because I was so focused on, the YA book releases that I was blind to this entire world. And then I found out basically about ApollyCon, which is Jennifer L. Armentrout's romance book convention. And I found out that it was local and it was something I could go to, and I decided to buy tickets to it 2 months in advance or something like that. And I took that as the initiative to start binging the authors that would be signing there. And you'll see behind me that I progressed quickly. So that was my full-blown deep dive into the romance world, where I basically just picked a whole bunch of authors off of that list and bought a ton of their titles, and I was hooked. I haven't come back since. I just love the genre so much. So much. Okay, question number 2 is, if you could be the heroine in a romance novel, who would be the author and what's one trope you'd insist be in the story? My first reaction to that would be to say Kennedy Ryan, because I'm sure she would write me to be the most badass, independent alpha female who gets the smoking hot alpha male and it's just sparks are a-flying. But she tends to put her characters through the emotional ringer, and I don't think I want to go through the turmoil that her heroes and heroines tend to go through. So let me backtrack and think real quick. Okay, I'm gonna take the safe route and say Serena Bowen, mainly because I really want to meet the Shipleys. I want to be written into the True North world, and I feel like that's a fairly safe contemporary world to be in with minimal danger, and I could potentially get a Shipley. Oh, and what was the other half? What's one trope you'd insist be on the story? Well, it would already be a small town, which is my favorite thing in the entire world in romance, but if we're getting into niche tropes, I would love some forced proximity. Have us get snowed in together. There's only one bed in the cabin. Oh no, what's gonna happen while the tension is brewing? It gets me every time. I've yet to read that trope in a book and be oh god, this is overdone. Every time I'm ooh, there's only one bed. So, one bed. There we go. Okay, question 3. What is a romance you've read this year that you want more people to read? I'm not prepared for this video. I haven't done a tag video in so long. I should have prepared for this. Let me pull up Goodreads real quick and see what I've been reading. The first thing that I can think of is, where did it go? I had it right here. Oh, it's blue. The spine is blue, but the cover's pink. The X-Talk by Rachel and Solomon. This just released and I feel like it's already underhyped. This was fantastic. This had great representation of all things. I loved it. So this one, right off the bat, that's one that I can think of. And looking through my Goodreads, I finally read Take a Hint, Danny Brown, so anything by Talia Hibbert, I will recommend. I also finally read Queen Move, because I was saving it, because I didn't know when my next Kennedy Ryan hit would come, so I was saving this, but I did finally read this in February, and it was a masterpiece, as to be expected. So those 2 books are my recommendations of books that I read this year that I think everybody should read. Okay, question 4. What is your favorite romance subgenre? What genre have you not read much from? Subgenre, I guess, would classify contemporary romance is what I generally look for. Like, if you're going to be browsing on, like, Overdrive, like your library system, or on Audible or Libro FM or whatever, the genre, I'm trying to picture the genre drop-down menu. Contemporary is the first thing that I go towards. I will probably always read contemporary. I'm starting to get more into PNR. I've always loved paranormal, so it's kind of nice to, like, revisit that, but in, like, the adult romance world. So potentially that in the future. And what was the second half? What is a subgenre that you have not read much from? Historical. And I don't know if that'll ever change, because I know historical romance is, like, the biggest part of, like, the romance reading experience. And maybe I just haven't given it a chance. I feel like I was gonna say maybe I just haven't read the right ones. I haven't given it a chance at all, and that's completely on me. But it's just not something I gravitate towards. I've never been a fan of, like, Jane Austen or historical anything in general. Like, those are not books, regardless of whether it's gonna be romance or, like, fiction or fantasy or anything like that. Historical is just not my jam. I like reading in contemporary times. So that's it. All right, where are we? Question 5. Who is one of your auto-buy romance authors? One? Okay, I'm gonna give you like 3, maybe 5. I don't know. Obviously, Kennedy Ryan. Kennedy Ryan drops a book. It's going on my shelf on release day. Like, you better believe. Let's see, who else? Mariana Zapata. She is another one that I think I have like 3 of her backlist books left that I've been saving for when I really just need a fix, because I don't know when her next book is coming out. So Mariana Zapata. What else? Probably like Elle Kennedy and Serena Bowen. They write together, but also I like their individual stuff, so can they count as one? There's like 3-4 authors. That works. Kennedy Ryan's my go-to, though. I'm obsessed with her and love her forever. Righty. Question 6. How do you typically find romance recommendations? Goodreads, YouTube, podcast, Instagram, etc. Here, BookTube. Basically, I have kind of reached the point where I don't watch much BookTube anymore. Even though I am a booktuber, I just am not consuming as much BookTube as I once did. But the channels that I follow are pretty much all just romance readers, and it's where I turn to for recommendations. But ultimately, everywhere, TikTok is starting to give me recommendations now that they're coming out of the dark ages of just discovering Cassandra Clare and The Cruel Prince. Like, we're starting to get TikTokers who are reading relevant new releases. Instagram, everywhere. I am part of the 21st century, which means I'm attached to my phone, which means I'm on social media all the time. So I get recommendations everywhere. Next question. What is an upcoming romance release that you're excited for? I'm not prepared for this video. Shoot. Well, while we're on the topic of this entire video, Real is the next Kennedy Ryan book that I believe is coming out. It's like the Hollywood Renaissance romance story that I know is coming. I don't know if it's coming out this year. I hope it is. So that one. Basically anything Kennedy Ryan writes. Again, anything Mariana Zapata is dropping. Whenever she drops a new book, it's gonna be that one. There we go. That's a good answer. Okay, question 8. What is one misconception about romance that you would like to lay to rest? We are going to not go on tangents in this video. This is going to be a contained tag video that's not going to be an hour long. That it's chick lit, that it is lesser than other pieces of literature. And I'm saying that as a very broad statement, but it's something that I had issues with. I feel like there's a lot of internalized misogyny relating to romance books because it has that same concept as like rom-com movies or chick lit or things that girls like that are automatically lesser than other things. Like, it's that age-old argument of like, men can talk about sports for endless time and it's never frowned upon, it's just expected. But God forbid a girl reads a romance novel and recommends it to the world, it's not great. Like, that I'm getting heated. But that concept, the fact that it can be considered less than other things. A romance book can be a 5-star book. A romance book can be a masterpiece and touch on all of the subjects that people use to rate books, and it can be a 5-star book. It doesn't have to be set in a fantasy world. It doesn't have to have an intense, like, historical storytelling. It doesn't have to have, like, all of these things. A romance book can pack a lot more than just the romance. That's my main thing. Also, I know it's internalized misogyny across the board here on how, like, only women want to find romance, but I'm sorry, a majority of the straight romances that exist, I'm pretty sure a man is the second half of that relationship and wants to be there just as much as she does. So I don't know why it's considered a girl thing to want to read about love, but even though guys fall in love, they don't want to talk. The world is a messed up place, folks. So that whole concept that romance is lesser than. Okay, rein it in, Chelsea. Next question. Who is the most recent romance reading content creator that you came across that you'd like to shout out? Ooh, I actually have one of these for once. So, going back to that question of where do you find a lot of recommendations, I recently just got back into podcasts. I go through phases with podcasts where I will find one that I love and binge the crap out of it and then not listen to a podcast for like a year. So I'm going back into that stage, and I wanted to find one discussing romance books. And I tried a whole bunch, and one that stuck with me was Smart Women Read Romance, which is leading me to the content creator being Jessin. Jessin Reads Romance here on BookTube. It is a podcast of her and her aunt who basically take each episode of their podcast and they deep dive and fangirl and do a full breakdown, like a spoilery review of a book. And I have been working my way through their backlist of episodes of all of the books that I love and love hearing people gush about. And then I found out that Jessin, who is one of the co-hosts of that podcast, is pretty active in the book community. Like, she talks about Jess from Peace Love Books, who I adore, and like Lacey, and she's in the community, and now she has a BookTube channel. So I've been watching all of her content. So I'm gonna shout her out. I love her, and I love what her and her aunt are doing for the romance book community. I love it a lot. Nope, that's it. That's the end. Okay, that was the last question. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys liked getting to know a little bit more about my romance reading preferences, and I will see you guys in my next video.